to kickstart this conversation, Dilip Bhat, founder of Pedigree Advisory, joins in right now on the show. Dilip Bhat, it's been a while, but thank you so much for taking the time out. Lovely talking to you today.
Neeraj, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. I think it's great interacting with you.
Likewise, sir. So the big news, right, and in some sense, the paint sector, which has been seeing disruptions of many a nature, are now getting a pedigree, deep balance sheet player buying out Akzo Nobel and becoming what, the fourth largest player almost immediately. What does this mean for this space? What did you make of the transaction?
So, Neeraj, I think certainly the consolidation is good for the industry, without any doubt. But I think more importantly, it may not necessarily be a great news for the leader, which is Asian Paints. Uh, Second thing is the paint industry itself is not showing any great growth in terms of the volume. So what I would say is right now you have Asian Paints, which is such a formidable player. Then there is the two new players we are talking about, the Grasim and JSW. And as what you very rightly use the word with deep pockets. Not to forget, this industry enjoys a very high gross margins. And so that's why everybody is keen to get into this industry because the competition is very limited, only to few players at the top, Asian Paints and couple of them. And now you have two other players trying to get inroads and get a foothold in a very big way. So initially, when this happens at the start, I don't think it's a great news for the industry. It will be a great news for the consumers because I think the competitive intensity will go up. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of new players trying to get a market share and compromise on such a big gross margin that they have at the moment. So I think all this would mean that the performance, the financial performance would continue to look muted. And of course, if there has to be a good volume growth to really inspire confidence in this industry back. So I would say that I'm not so gung-ho on this particular industry. I would still wait and watch, not be in a hurry to invest in this particular sector and in the companies. I would wait and watch. And if I got Asian Paints, it's a very difficult call to say sell, but I think one should definitely can think about switching a part of your quantity from this to some other blue chip.
Okay. Dilip, can I probe, actually Harsh, maybe if you have a question first. Okay, can I just probe this a bit? Until the consolidation started, the belief just was that the growth vectors for the paint sector continue to be high because as per capita moves up, people will do up their homes more often. A lot of people will be able to do their homes, which they hitherto might not have been able to do because paints was what just, despite the fact that paints is just 1.5 or 2% of the overall interior cost. At least that's what the paint companies say. Is it the competitive intensity that makes people like you or some others believe that there might be better bets elsewhere?
So Neeraj, I think the broad theory and the angle which you spoke about is definitely quite right. And I think that is what is really making everyone quite interested and remain invested in this particular industry. But Dheeraj, just to tell you, I think this theory which we are talking about as a per capita income goes up, I think some of the conspicuous consumption like paint will come into focus and maybe their volume growth will go up. But I would think that that would be true for so many other sectors too as the per capita income goes up. So that theory, I think, is to a great extent is fully there in the market and in the prices. What I think is this consolidation would mean that some of the players which were not a very serious player in the markets, now this new acquisitions and the consolidation will help them to aggressively come into this particular market, the decorative paints, the industrial paints, and possibly that competitive intensity will continue for some more time. So I think something like what happened in If you see in the telecommunication, the entire sector suffered as Geo really rampaged the entire industry and disrupted the whole thing. So I think a similar kind of thing is being played out already for last 1 year, possibly for another 1.5 years is what I would believe this is how it's going to play out.
Right. But sir, if we're looking beyond that, say we're looking 3 years, that will likely also mean that pricing power will shift back towards the producers or the paint makers, as one would call it. Does that not relatively advantage some of the larger ones, like an Asian Paints? And hence, coming to the main question, why at this point not go long on something like that?
Of course, you're absolutely right. I think that consolidation angle and the pricing power coming back to the few players is going to remain. One of the USPs or one of the angles from why one will think about this sector and investing in this. But two things we should also consider that valuations are definitely on the expensive side. Now, if you were to take that in the past has traded such a high valuation and possibly as compared to that it has come down, yes, that there could be some argument out over there. But with lack of volume growth, I think, and competitive intensity only increasing and everybody wanting to make their presence felt, I think uh, I think that even if the volume comes back, it will be at a price, and the gross margin is something which will still remain vulnerable. Now, whether that happens or not, that's a different story. But the perception of the the vulnerability of the gross margins will act as an apprehension or act as a deterrent for any investor to make fresh commitments, is what my perspective would be. I think on a long-term basis, yes. If you're talking about beyond 3 years, 4 years, and 3 to 5 years, yes. But then the price at which you're laying at right now is not something which I will call it as a bargain buy. So everything is in favor of some of these companies, whether it's Asian Paints, Berger, or anybody you take, whether Grasim, or they're all good managements. And of course, Asian Paints is more, has demonstrated how well they can do in the last 10, 15 years. But in the revised scenario, I would not be too sure whether they will continue to dominate. And that lack of domination itself will create a lot of apprehension. And of course, it will impact the P's of the company.
So, sir, at what earning multiple would you be comfortable buying in if there were a correction tomorrow? At what earning multiple, whether trailing 12 months, 1 year forward, you pick, what is a reasonable valuation for something like this?
So I would interpret it in a slightly different way. The stocks in this sector will offer opportunities to buy, but I would say for short term or maximum medium term. But I think that will be some of those trading opportunities which the stocks will keep on throwing, technically if they come below a particular level or if it goes above. But in my opinion, I may not wait for the correction to happen. Any deep correction possibly may not happen. I think even a sideways movement or stagnation over a longer period of time itself would act as a deterrent for me to immediately commit in this particular sector. So I would still say, as what I repeated, that I would like to see how this thing gets played out over next 1.5 years. Now, just to tell you as an analogy, the cement sector, if you see, has undergone a phenomenal consolidation. But yet you see in cement that despite the last 3 or 4 years being so very good in terms for the infra, when there was a strong infra momentum which has got considerably diluted, and the real estate also was doing so well. And we saw that cement industry in the last 3 years has not gone anywhere, largely because of the fact that the competitive intensity remains very high out over there. And, whether the margins get compressed or not, that is the outcome. But the apprehension of that margins will get impacted, that apprehension doesn't go away. So I think a similar kind of thing also possibly will happen in case of paint industry, which is being played out right now.
Okay. Dilip bhai, one final question. For an Akzo Nobel shareholder, because that's amongst the highest rated counters. I'm not asking for a recommendation on the stock, but I'm just doing an argument right now. It was a management which was an MNC management, not as growth hungry, presumably because the numbers haven't been that great thus far, but now gets an aggressive promoter with balance sheet and distribution synergies, trading at a multiple which is maybe 35, 36 times versus a Berger or an Asian Paints trading at 55, 56 times. What do you think happens? Do the sector valuations contract, or does over a period of time, if in the minds of investors at least right now from perception perspective, does the Akzo Nobel valuation multiple inch up?
Neeraj, I think that's not a very easy question because that's a really very good question on your part, not very easy to answer. But one more angle which I always see in this particular thing before I can answer on the Akzo. Even if I were to see that JSW or even Grasim, if I mean, prima facie, they have been a very great B2B players. B2C, I think JSW Group has yet to get its feet wet. So B2C is a different ball game. The DNA of the management in the company is essentially B2B. Not to say they will not succeed in B2C, but to succeed in B2C and to make a decent ROI is completely a different ball game. So that is one of the angles that one should keep in mind. And same for Grasim. Even for Grasim, I would say that the entire Aditya Birla Group possibly has got good presence in B2C, but not really anything great that has happened in any of their B2C segments. And so similarly, when they continue to be in the paint industry, I think the same questions will keep on coming in the minds of the investors. So coming back to your Akzo, I don't think that the sector will, I mean, there's a full possibility that sector P might contract, but whether there will be expansion of Akzo, I'm not too sure of that. I think they're from not a very hungry for growth MNC management to a management which has yet to demonstrate its skill in the B2C segment. So I don't think there will be anything great that possibly might happen, is what my own limited view would be.
Got it. Okay. Mr. Dilip Bhat, we'll leave you on that note. Thank you so much for taking the time out and look forward to talking to you more often.